Eternal benefits from God. So, who has Psalm 1?
Me.
Go for it.
Blessed is the man that walketh in the counsel of the wicked.
Wait, one more time?
Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the wicked, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of Jehovah, and on his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by streams of water, that bringeth forth fruit in its season, whose leaf also does not wither. Whosoever he doeth shall prosper. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind driveth away. Therefore the wicked shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For Jehovah knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall perish.
Okay, so it said about on day and night. Read, I think it's verse 2 for me. Reread verse 2.
But his delight is in the law of Jehovah, and the law does not. On that law he does meditate day and night.
Okay, how many of us meditate day and night on the law? And actually, the law. What do you guys think the original Hebrew is there?
The scriptures.
Nope. One very specific word referencing the first 5 books of the Bible. Torah, yeah. So it's saying that those who dwell in the Torah day and night. Now, do you guys remember what Torah actually means? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Maybe even last week. Torah means...
Laws?
God's laws?
That's what we always take it as, and it's not quite right. Okay? It actually means instructions or directions. Okay? So Torah means directions or instructions. So happy is the man who day and night dwells and thinks and contemplates on the Torah of God, the law, his instructions, and his directions. So the things that God directs us and instructs us, right, to righteousness, those who dwell on those things day and night, that's where that blessing idea comes from. Okay? And so now if you think about it, this blessing is something that has to do with eternal benefits. So if you're dwelling day and night on God's instructions on how to live here, all right, how to do, what he says, how to interact with each other, not even thinking about killing someone, being kind, helping that person that's broke down off to the side of the road, whatever it is, all those things help in your righteousing. Okay? All right, Psalm 112, verse 1.
Psalm what?
112, verse 1.
Have that.
Who has it?
I have 146.
Okay, that's the next one. Who's got 112?
I thought Justin was looking it up.
Oh, what Psalms?
Verse what?
112, verse 1.
Praise ye Jehovah. Blessed is the man that feareth Jehovah, and that delight greatly in his commandments.
All right, 146, verse 5.
Blessed are those whose help this God of Jacob, who hopes in the Lord is their God.
All right, so these are all the things that David is describing as to blessedness of men. All right, so what's blessedness? What is blessing?
For those who hope.
Being in God's
eternal benefits.
I put down spiritual happiness over eternal benefits from God. Is that kind of...
Spiritual benefits over...
Spiritual happiness over eternal benefits from God. Does that kind of work? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's the state of, receiving, the state of declaring those benefits. All right, verse 7. Saying, blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Can somebody look up Psalm 32, 1 through 2?
Okay.
All right, Troy. Psalm 32, 1 and 2.
Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, who sin are covered. Blessed is the one whose sins the Lord does not count against them, and whose spirit is not the spirit is not decent.
At the very beginning of that, did it have like a Psalm of David?
Yeah, David of a
Moscow?
yeah.
Okay, do you guys know what that word is? We've read past it 150 times. Alright, it's a, what they would call, if you're like in school and you study didactic poems. You guys know what didactic is? Alright, this particular psalm is a poem that is meant to express or teach ideas and directions. Okay? So that's what that Moscow, whenever you see that, because all these psalms usually have a heading on them. To the choir director, something along those lines. Yeah, so it's a poem that's made for instruction or teaching, to give you knowledge.
How do you spell that?
How do you spell that?
Maschio.
No, Maskil.
Oh, M-A-S-K.
Mine says CHIL.
Yeah, so one's probably just the phonetic sounding. CH, the hard K. They pronounce it as K, or in his version it's K, and in yours it's CH. Because remember, we're dealing with a language that only, that took out all the vowels. So how do we spell things? We put them back together as best we can in transliteration.
It's just saying Moscow.
And it's a poem meant to give instruction?
Yeah, well, you can put down, actually, if you want to check it out, didactic. D-I-D-A-C-T-I-C.
Okay.
Didactic. But it's a poem that gives instruction, knowledge, or teaching.
Oh.
Alright, so blessed are those whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. So going all the way back to the Psalms, this is not just a New Testament idea. You guys see that this is going back all the way back, okay? Blessed is the man whom the Lord will not impute sin. Okay, remember we were talking about impute just a minute ago. So it's like a charge against, in case of like a debt. Alright, so the Lord will not charge against them their shortfallenness. Alright, cometh this blessedness then upon the does this, I'll put it in regular English, does this blessedness come upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. Alright, so, the circumcision, alright, the first one there, you guys see that there? That just, the literal Greek just means to be cut around, okay? But the second one, for the uncircumcision, that was actually a slang term. If you guys, it's on the second line in the Greek of verse 9. Second word, akrob ostian. That was actually like a slang term for anybody who was a Gentile, somebody who wasn't circumcised, or somebody who was not considered to be part of the covenant of Abraham. Okay? So it was kind of like not a nice thing to call somebody. But now if this is being used, who do you think this letter is going to be read by, or who Paul thinks this is going to be read by, but by the Jews? Because they would definitely know this slang term for what they call anybody outside of the camp, anybody outside of their church. Okay? Alright, so, does this blessedness come upon only the circumcision, or also the uncircumcision? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. How was it reckoned then? When he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Does anybody know? Was Abraham called righteous before or after he was circumcised?
I think after.
So he was 99 when he was circumcised, and God gave him this promise a long time before.
I don't remember him being circumcised.
I know, isn't that funny?
He was circumcised the same day as his son.
And strangely enough, this was in the world. I looked into it today too, because in ancient Egypt, going all the way back, what was that year I asked you to look on the calendar? Was it 2300 BC?
2300.
2300 BC. All right, so this is very shortly after the flood. They find records of tomb carvings that had circumcision rites on it. And I found it also very interesting because if you guys remember a long time ago when I taught about right after the flood how Ham went down, Mizraim, the land of Egypt became Mizraim. They were living there. Things got kind of bad, and so Shem, all right, coming from Salem, ruled in Egypt for a short period of time, and then returned back to Salem. You guys remember me saying anything about that? All right. I found it interesting that it was about the same time when Shem would have been down in Egypt. Did he bring that circumcision right? Was it even older than we know about it from Abraham? Was it also going all the way back to Noah, but we just have not been told about it? Because somebody taught somebody about it very shortly after the time of the flood. Okay, just throwing it out there. All right, who wants to look up Genesis 15:6? Genesis 15:6, thank you.
I'll grab that.
How about Genesis 17, 24, and 25 for you? 15:6.
Did you name the second one?
Yeah, he has Genesis 17, 24, and 25.
Oh, I thought you said Genesis 15.
All right, so how was it reckoned then? Was he, or when he was in circumcision or uncircumcision? And there's the answer. Not in circumcision, but it was in his time of being uncircumcised. So Paul is saying right here, very strong case against the idea that you have to be circumcised in order for righteousness, right? Okay, you got 15?
Yeah.
Go forward.
Abram believed that the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness.
So before the act of circumcision, before that final covenant with Abraham, he said, now you and your entire household and anyone that comes unto you will be circumcised as an outward act of showing that you are mine. Before that, it says that it was because of what?
Before what?
Why did it say he was? Go ahead and reread it.
Okay, Abram believed the Lord.
Believed. Abraham was believing what the Lord said he meant. And it was more real to him than anything in this world.
But isn't that what, like, actually made him righteous, basically?
Right.
His
trusting in God.
So,
that,
okay.
You know how we have that word believing, pisteo? And you guys know that it's not just, I think that God is real, so I believe in what he says, is putting your feet to the pavement and actually following what he says, trusting in God. When you see something, you know, that's not trusting, okay? When God says, hey, I want you to go into this land, walk on this borders, and wherever you walk, that land you'll own, he's walking through other people's territory. He's walking through other people's farm fields. He's walking through other people's places where they graze their cattle. And he's like, hey, one day this is all going to be mine. And he's just like a vagabond, you know, walking through this countryside saying, hey, one day this is all going to be mine. And the people are laughing at him. They're like, you don't own anything but that tent you carry on your back, you know. So just imagine that in his heart, he really trusted and faithed in God that all the places that his foot stepped, he was going to one day own. Okay? But that was all on faith. He didn't own it. He didn't own anything but the cattle and, you know, whatever he had in his family at that time. But he didn't own all that land, even though he walked through it all. What else did he do? I'm trying to think. There's a few other things, but what was that?
The other Genesis.
Oh yes, the other Genesis 17. Can you read that for me?
What was it again?
The other one is 17, 24, and 25. You got that?
Oh, yes, I do. You said 24 to 25?
Yep, 2 verses.
Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin.
So there, it was 13.
So, yeah, they get circumcised. So they did get circumcised.
Yes, yeah, he did.
But his second son was circumcised the 7th day.
8th.
8th day.
Do you know why it's the 8th day? You know how your blood, some people don't have the clotting, what do they call those? Those little clotting cells that when you have a cut.
Red blood cells?
The clotting. What is the clotting part?
I forgot what it's
The
called.
RH factor?
No, not that. Well, whatever it is.
It has to do with that.
When a baby's first born, all right, while it's in the mother's womb, it's not really going to be cut by anything. So the body, as the child's born, it's developing and it's making more of those clotters, whatever they're called, and I can't remember what it is. So by the 8th day, you could actually cut the child and he wouldn't bleed to death. But previous to the 8th day, if you did it sooner, like on the first day, as soon as the child was born, the child at that point could have bled to death. Okay. All right, so we have this idea that he was made righteous, or it was accounted to him as righteous, even though, he didn't do anything but trust in God, walk through a land, and believed that God would really give it to him, trusted that he would become the father of many nations, many people, that his descendants would be more numerous than the stars in the heavens. And did you guys know that there's actually more stars in the heavens than there are grains of sand in all the world?
I believe it.
There's more stars in the heavens than there are grains of sand in the entire world. Pretty crazy. So he's going to be more numerous than that. All right, and he trusted in that. All right, and 11. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith which he had yet, being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all of them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed to them also. So, even to the ones who are uncircumcised, all right, if you're doing this phasing act of trusting God, and what he says is more real than anything in this world, then that righteousness is accounted even unto them.
Why did he wait that long to get circumcised?
Why did he?
Mm-hmm.
That's when God told him to be circumcised.
Yeah, that was when God made that covenant with him.
Oh.
I think that was in Genesis chapter 17 as it talks about that.
Oh.
So he was very, very old at that point.
Abraham had been around for a minute.
Very long minute. All right, and the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father. Okay, so there's two words here that we got to touch on. All right, for this one, but unfortunately the verse is split. The Greek that we're going to talk about is on the second page. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about, who also walk in the steps. Okay, now when you guys think about that, walking in the steps of, have you guys ever, actually you two might, when I was a little kid and I was walking to school, my sister would try to walk in my steps.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
she does that all the time.
However, I don't like making new footsteps.
Well, and it's easier. You don't have all the snow coming into your shoe every time you pull your foot out. All right, there were some times where I was not a good big brother, and so I would take really big steps.
I do that same thing.
No, he really takes big footsteps. I'm like, why are you making these big steps? Irritating.
Yeah. So that's something I'm very proud of, but yes, I used to do that as a little spoiled brat kid. Not caring for my sister, doing unto others as I would have done unto me. Okay, I did do that. But walking in the footsteps kind of implies following very close behind and putting your foot in the steps of that person that was in front of you, right? Yeah. So, the person we're talking about here is Abraham. As he put his foot to the ground, everywhere he stepped, God said, you would own this land, and he trusted in that. All right? So, the idea is, and the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father Abraham. Okay? So, that word, the first one here, walking, the word means walking in cadence. You guys, anybody been in band? Have you ever had to do marching band?
Yeah, cadences.
You remember what cadence is? When you line up and you march?
Yeah, you march and just have a straight tempo. And then marching band plays like the cadence on their own, or drum line play cadences on their own.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the
to keep the march going in the same synced.
All
right, you guys have all seen like armies.
Band.
You guys might have seen the old videos from the Hitler regime where he would have his people walking and marching, doing that crazy step. You guys know what I'm talking about? You've seen that video?
All right, like the long stride.
The long stride, yeah, with the foot straight out or the leg straight out. All right, so they were marching in cadence, okay? And that's this idea that the one who walks but marches walks in cadence in the exact same way as Father Abraham, okay? And then the other one is the footprints, okay? It has the idea of implied moving forward, okay? So not walking backwards in Abraham's footsteps, but moving forward in his faithing act of trusting God. following behind him, moving forward and trusting in God. Okay? Okay, verse 13. For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. Okay, so the law wasn't even around yet, right? We're talking back all the way back in Abraham's time. There was no law, there was no Moses. That doesn't come for another 430 some odd years, right? Okay, so it was before the law, so it is through the righteousness of faith. Verse 14, for if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of no effect. Okay? Because like sometimes you think non-effect, you're thinking like worthless kind of a thing, but it's not worthless, it's just no effect or idle, not moving, having the ability to not do anything. So if they which are of the law be heirs, then the idea of faith is gone. It has nothing to do with faith, it has to do with doing that law, fulfilling every jot and tittle, every day of your life from birth until death, never breaking it, and being perfect, which we know we can't do. As I said earlier, even though I was a good little boy, there were times with my sister that I was not always a good little boy. You know, there were times where I was selfish, and I was mean as a big brother, okay? Troy. That's alright, I did it too. But you take care of her. I've heard he just told the story of how he was protecting you later on. And yeah, anybody mess with my sister, I always took care of them. In fact, there's one story I don't even want to talk about because it's terrible. Okay, verse 15. Because the law worketh wrath. You guys remember from earlier that was anger, it was passion, vengeance. But because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, then there's no transgression. Okay, transgression is actually a deliberate overstepping of a boundary. So it's just not, what we think of like a trespass. It's deliberately. You know that it's wrong and you do it anyway. Can anyone say here that they've never done anything that they knew was wrong? Yeah, I've done 1,000 things. I've done 1,000 things that I knew were wrong, but I was just like, well, I'm not going to die right now if I do this.
No, there were some things though, like
you might be good sometimes, but not all the time.
What?
Just stop.
Okay, so
Like,
keep going.
you.
All right. So now what he's saying is that if there is no law, then there's no transgression. All right, kind of like the idea if you've ever been on a road where they didn't have a speed limit. Well, if you got pulled over for going 50, well, there's no there's no sign posted that I couldn't go 50. Or what's that one, the Autobahn? Where you can go like super fast.
yeah.
So whether you're going, well, I think you get in trouble if you go too slow, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you the first 2 lanes have speed limits, but the far left lane doesn't have speed limit.
Okay, but I thought it had a minimum.
No, well, you there's no minimum in the far left lane, but the thing is if I'm going faster than you have to get over.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of
like, at some points it does actually come down to like
30.
The equivalent to maybe 60. I think that's what 120 is.
Okay. Yeah. Somewhere right around there. Yeah, because I think it's probably close.
No,
right.
90 is 160. That's all I know.
90 is 160?
Yeah.
In the metric, okay. Well, so it's the idea of, there's no rule posted about how fast you can go. So if you're going 80, 90, or 100, you're not breaking the law, right? Mm-hmm. So Paul's saying if there is no law, then there's no law to break. But the real idea is that, if there is no law, all right, then there is no breach, okay? If there is a law, then there has to be a penalty for that, right? So if there's a posted sign that says 45 and you do 100, there was a law, you broke the law, and now there's a penalty for it.
Either a ticket or you go to jail.
Right, ticket or jail. Okay, so remember that idea of a deliberate overstepping, because we're going to see it again. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be by grace, and you remember that grace we talked about before, gift, favor, or kindness for grace. So it's a gift. You don't do anything to receive a gift, you just get a gift. Okay? So it is by this gift to the end of the promise might be sure to all the seed. Actually, we're going to take a real quick sidetrack. Go over into the Greek and find that word that they translate seed.
Spermatia. Or spermati.
And what does it sound like?
Spermatio.
Sperm.
Sperm. All right, now, I've always thought it kind of odd, the idea of circumcision, when I was younger. But then, do you guys know how people used to swear in the Old Testament? And I don't mean like swear cursing, but like swear an oath or an agreement.
They used to grab their thigh.
Okay, it's actually translated in our King James that they sat on their thigh. But the
put their hand on their thigh.
literal was that you would sit on your sack.
Wait.
You would swear by your seed that whatever the covenant was, whatever the agreement between you and this other party, that you swear on the life of your descendants for truth. Now, come on, you guys are a little bit old.
You're
How is that? No, it's not. There's nothing immature.
Okay,
It's
Okay.
Jonah,
more
we're
so
talking
like,
about a ball sack here. Is that something to
The idea
giggle
in the
or be
past was that you would
uncomfortable
live on through your descendants, right?
Okay.
right.
Okay, so if by swearing on your seed that when
Oh,
I sell you
I get
this
that.
land,
I get that.
okay,
But what I'm confused on,
Yes, so this is...
this whole process.
I think that they held there.
no, I didn't grab yours and you didn't grab mine. You would sit on your hand, like you know how we put our hand on the Bible and we raise our other hand and swear. All right, the testimony between like if we were selling a property
Your
or
own
land,
hand on your own.
Okay,
you
I'm
would sit
thinking
on
like this.
your.
I'm thinking like this.
self.
Like, let me put myself here without like me.
Oh, yes, I was
Okay,
thinking,
I'm thinking
like,
like no hand.
That's gonna...
Okay.
That's gonna...
That doesn't make it as bad as
You
what
would
I
sit
thought.
on your hand and then swear by that whatever the agreement was, that you would fulfill that agreement
Okay.
So that's
based
the
off
same
of
thing what I was
you know,
thinking.
your seed. So that whole idea of spermati being seed, we kind of see the connection.
I took that literally.
Okay.
I took that as a literal sitting. I'm like,
I was like,
oh, exactly.
No, not
thinking,
literal,
like,
not
like,
literal.
At some point, like your body should have been like, oh, no.
Uncut.
Like,
All right, so going on. Not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of us all. And you know that idea of father of us all? Like, sometimes we take it as this idea of like, spiritually, father of us all. There is that. But also, going that far back in our family tree, and if you guys have ever studied anything with population growth, that one child has a child, then that child has 12, and then those 12. I mean, by the time they came into the land of Egypt, like we did this study, years ago, when they came into the land of Egypt, they weren't just Abraham's family. There were people of all these different nations that had now mixed into Abraham's family. All of those families have now spread out. I mean, do you guys get the idea that we're starting at a pyramid upside down and like just spreading hugely? Like the possibility of one of us in here not being of the seed of Abraham is pretty scarce. Just because of the factor of how far back this goes. Because we're talking at least 4,000 years ago. Okay? And this was at a time where people, weren't as spread out as we are now. Okay, so, moving on to verse 17. I think we might be able to finish it. As it is written, remember, if it ever says as it is written somewhere in the Old Testament, you're going to find what he's about to say. I have made thee a father of many nations, before him who he believed, even God, who quickens or gives life to the dead, and who calleth those things which be not as though they were, or creates new things out of nothing. That's kind of more literally. Not just which be not as though they were, but creating new things out of nothing. So, can you guys think of Abraham's story, two things that were considered dead, that God would give life to?
Sarah's womb.
Sarah's womb and
his body.
Abraham's body. Okay. Oh, that's another interesting. See the word for one. Actually, it's the word for quickeneth. All right, in the Greek, you see that word, zoopiontos. Okay, that's where we get our word for zoo, because it has to do with I collected live is the literal for the Greek, and so we shorten it zoo, and that's where we collect live animals, right? Life. All right, who against verse 18. Who against hope believed in hope. Do you guys know where we get the word hope from in our language? Hope? Alright, the etymology, if you guys ever study etymology, you'll be fascinated by all the things you can find out about what we say. Hope comes from the word to hop. Okay, like, you know, a little bunny rabbit hopping away, hoping that this next hop, that pursuing predator behind him would just stop and give up. It's that idea of hopping. Or have you guys ever seen in the movies when like somebody is running from a roof and they're trying to jump onto this next roof, and all of a sudden it's in slow motion and they're flailing their arms around and it's all in slow motion? That hop in the hope of that they're going to make it. All right, that's the idea behind this word hop, or hope in our language. All right, who against hope believed in hope, that he might become the father of many nations, according to that which was spoken. So shall thy seed be. And that goes back to that Genesis 15:5. His seed would be what? As numerous as the stars in the heavens. Right? Okay, moving on. And being not weak in his faith, not weak in his faith, I mean, yeah, I guess that's okay, we kind of understand it. Being not weak in his faith, he considered, or he faced the fact that his body was dead, okay? He faced the fact that his body was, or that he considered his own body now dead, but he actually, the literal is that he faced the fact that, hey, you know what, I'm 99 years old. I can't have a kid anymore. And, you know, even on record, the oldest man to ever have a child was 96. Okay, nobody older than that has ever had a child. So he faced the fact that his body was dead, and when he was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. Okay, so if you guys will look over to the Greek for me. Now, his body being dead, all right, you guys see that necromenon? All right, if you guys want to write down, it says having been dead, but it actually means corpse-like. Okay, so he recognized that his body was corpse-like. You guys notice anything about that Greek word that we get any words from in our English?
Necrophilia.
Sleeping with dead people. Necromancer, trying to bring dead people back to life. All right, so that's where these words come from. And then in the third line, where it talks about Sarah's, you guys see how her word is a slightly different version of the same word, necro? All right? That word for her is actually lifeless. So it was considered that Sarah's womb was lifeless. Okay? All right, verse 20. He staggered or hesitated not. He didn't waver at the promise of God, through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to God. You guys all have that being strong. You guys can check your other versions if you'd like. It's actually that he was strengthened by God. All right, so his faith was strengthened by God. And that's kind of our promise even in the New Testament that Paul talks about, is that you start this act of faith. Okay? Once you've started it, God's going to send trials your way to help you strengthen your faith. But with those trials, he will also give us the strength every day renewed. Now, remember that key phrase, because you guys will probably have some really hard times coming in your life. I hope not, but you probably will, just because we all kind of do. Every day, God will give you new strength for that day. And I think it's in Matthew 5:36. It's like the last verse, I think, in chapter 5. It says that sufficient is the evil for each day. And basically it's getting the idea across, this is Jesus saying this, but it's the idea that every day you're going to face hard times and trials and evil.
What says, can do not to swear, but your head, or cannot make you...
No, this is not it.
Oh, that's
Is that chapter 5?
No.
Neither hath thou sweared by the head, for thou cannot make your hair.
Alright, check the very last verse. Or
I checked the last verse of it
Yeah, it's
too.
not it.
Ye therefore shall be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Is the last one of Matthew 5.
Alright, hold on.
And chapter 6 is, be not therefore anxious about the morrow, for the morrow will be anxious of itself.
Oh.
Sufficient in the day.
That's it.
Sufficient unto the day is evil thereof.
Is
It's
evil
Matthew
thereof.
6,
6:30,
34.
34. Alright, I was very close, sorry, I apologize.
He was
Alright.
one chapter off.
6:34. So check that out, and it gives us the idea that every day you are going to face evil. But God promises that with every day, He will give you the strength to get through that. Okay? And trust me, there are some days that you will need that. There are some days where you're going to think that you are not going to be able to make it through the end of this day. But just trust. This is a chance for you to trust and use those faith muscles that God will give you the strength to get through that day. Okay, so, verse 21. And being fully persuaded, or fully convinced, fully believing, that what he was promised, or what he had promised God, he was also able to perform it. All right, so that's that idea that I always talk about, how that idea of trusting in God, that what He says is more real than your circumstances. All right, and you can find that in almost any story of these patriarchs and these people, these stories that we have in the Word, where they were faced with a circumstance that was unsurpassable. When Moses and all the Israelites got to that shore and seen the water, and Pharaoh's army coming behind him in that Wadi Wahir, you guys remember that story, right? Coming through that little channel, here was Pharaoh and all those chariots. They were on this shore, and they started saying, "Oh, you brought us here to die. We should have just stayed in Egypt." They thought that this was unpassable. But there was faith that what God said, that they were going to leave Egypt, and then the waters opened, and they left Egypt just like God said. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
It says differently on here than this.
It's a different version. What verse?
Romans 4:22.
Okay, what do you got?
On here it says, "This is why it wasn't credited to him as righteousness," but it still says like almost the same thing on here.
That's what we were talking. Remember earlier when I said
Different
imputed?
wording.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Remember I said earlier, imputed meant like accredited,
Like,
accounted to. Okay, you guys all got that? So in verse 22, and therefore it was accounted or imputed to him for righteousness. And we're going to see that 2 more times here, that word imputed. So now it was not written for his sake alone, but it was imputed or accounted to him, but also to whom it shall be accounted if we believe on him, that God who raised up Jesus, our Lord, Kyrios, from the dead. Okay? Raised up is to awaken or to lift up. And you guys remember the Lord? You remember what the early church people were called? Look at the Greek. Kyrion. And people would look at you and go, wait a second, the way you treat each other, you're the Kyrios, you're the Lord's. Okay? So we should all be acting in such a way that people can look at our lives and say, there's something different about this person. They must be the Kyrios. Okay? The Lord's. And the last verse in 25, who was delivered, and there it is, handed over. All right, remember we talked earlier about who he was handed over to when we were doing the quiz questions? Who was handed over for our offenses and was raised again for our justification. Okay? So, our offenses, it's the same word that we talked about earlier, trespasses. It's willingly, knowingly that you're committing or doing something that's wrong, okay? But you do it anyway, which we all do every day. That little girl, or that not little girl, that hot little mama walks by and you're just like, I can't look. But for that split second, you think about it. Even though you know it's wrong. Even though you know you shouldn't. Okay?
To look at him?
It depends what you think.
If you're thinking it, you're doing it.
I was under the impression as long as I'm not thinking anything.
Right. If you're not thinking anything, yes. If you can apply I think Job chapter 31, that I've made a covenant with my eyes that I might not look upon a young woman or a virgin, lustfully. If you can do that, awesome. Awesome. But like for some, that you've been with some guys that go, oh, I can't look because I know what I'm going to think. It's unfortunately we're in the flesh.
I think it's most guys.
I would say probably, because guys, we're wired to be visual.
I would say 100%. Any guy that says he isn't, he's lying.
All right, so
We've all
no. If you're gay and you're looking at a woman, you might not be lustful.
If you're gay and you're looking at a man, then yeah, I count that the same way.
All right,
I count that the same.
Just remember, offenses, that is that purposeful overstepping of boundaries. And the justification. Who can tell me over the last few weeks of all the Romans justification, what does that mean? Can anyone tell me?
I really don't.
All right, then write it down, because I'm going to ask you probably next week for verse 5 or in chapter 5, because we're going to see it again. Divinely pardoned. Remember it came from Dike, that old goddess? When Paul was on the shore, got bit by the snake, and they said, "Ah, look, Dike has not let him live." Okay, because that was that vengeance of the gods. But in this use here, Dike osin, that is divinely pardoned. Okay? Alright, any questions from tonight? We got through a whole chapter in one night. Do you guys see, now that you guys know these words a lot better, we can actually get through this stuff a little bit quicker? You know, we don't have to spend 3 weeks on one chapter.
What?
I was gonna throw it away, but okay.
No questions?
I'll
All right.
freeze it, sure.
Sorry. I got another blanket if you want.
All right.
Alright, keep these, throw them in your folder. Next week I will give you 5. And we will continue Romans next week.
Offered you a jacket. I'll let you sit there.
I
and
would
get home.
still be cold. I have that much blood.